we are about to tell the story of the horrific death of hot model Eve Stratford, which shocked London, UK, in 1975. Nearly half a century has passed, but the identity of the murderer remains a mystery. The unfortunate victim in this story is Eve Stratford, born in 1953 in Germany and raised in the town of Warrington, Cheshire, England. In 1972, at the age of 19, she left her hometown for London, determined to realize her dream of becoming a famous model. There, she became a waitress at the prestigious Playboy Club in central London. The club attracted millionaires, celebrities, and even members of the underworld. The hostesses wore signature hot outfits with bows and bunny ears. After working there for a while, Eve became familiar with the club's clientele and staff. Eve lived in a first-floor flat in Leighton. She shared the flat with her boyfriend, Tony Priest, a singer in a rock band, and 2 other members of his band. Eve aspired to become a model for the US Playboy magazine, but when that didn't work out, she became the cover girl for Playboy's UK rival, Mayfair. In March 1975, Eve appeared in a revealing photo spread across 9 pages of Mayfair magazine, including a topless photo on the cover. She also participated in an interview where she discussed her sexuality openly. Playboy Club owner Victor Aubrey Loans III was furious when he saw Eve's skimpy photos in a rival publication, resulting in her suspension from work for 3 months. However, Eve remained undeterred, even seeing this as an opportunity to launch her modeling career. 2 weeks after Eve's controversial photo shoot, on March 17, 1975, Tony Priest returned home from a performance to find a bloody scene in the apartment he shared with his girlfriend. Eve was found murdered in her apartment, her body bearing horrific injuries. Detectives described the scene as one of the most horrifying they had ever encountered. An autopsy revealed she had been stabbed about 12 times and suffered deep wounds, including a slashed throat. Bound with a scarf behind her back and ankle socks around her legs, Eve lay murdered in her bathrobe. A bouquet of fresh flowers lay beside her body. The autopsy revealed a fatal knife wound to Eve's throat, explaining her death. With no signs of forced entry and the murder weapon missing, it appeared Eve may have known her attacker. Investigators pieced together Eve's final movements. Prior to the attack, she met with her representative, then visited an advertising consulting company. She returned home via subway and was last seen by neighbors walking towards her apartment alone at around 3:58 p.m. on March 18. Around half an hour later, a resident of the apartment complex heard voices, Eve's and a man's, coming from her apartment. This was followed by sounds of arguing and then loud noises. Pinpointing the time frame, investigators determined Eve's murder likely occurred sometime after 4:30 p.m. Her boyfriend, Tony, discovered her body upon returning home from work around 5:25 p.m. Eve's boyfriend, Tony Priest, along with Mayfair magazine editor David Brenner and Lebanese businessman and Playboy Club regular Abdul Khawaja, were questioned by police but eventually cleared. Eve's murder became a media sensation for months. Police suspected that her revealing photos in magazines and a candid interview about her sexuality might have played a role in making her a target. Colleagues expressed shock at the interview's frank discussions about Eve's personal life. The article also mentioned Eve stating she lived alone with her cat, despite having roommates. This detail, along with her revealing photos, raised concerns that it could have been a factor in the attacker targeting her, possibly with sexual motives. The absence of defensive wounds and reported screams could indicate Eve may not have recognized her attacker. However, it's also possible she was too frightened to resist. Detectives explored the possibility of a secret lover, someone Eve might have invited in. However, they discounted this theory due to the potential of her boyfriend returning home. The lack of forced entry suggested the attacker might have been someone Eve knew and allowed into the apartment. Several waitresses at the Playboy Club reported to police that they had received harassing phone calls prior to Eve's murder. In a separate incident, a woman claimed she received threats after nude photos of her were published in Mayfair magazine. Police also discovered Eve had received similar harassing calls in the weeks leading up to her death. The callers would often remain silent or whisper obscenities. On the day of the murder, Eve received 3 mysterious calls where the caller said nothing and then hung up. Despite scouring nearby gardens, trash cans, and sewers, police found no murder weapon. However, they did recover a magazine with a torn image of Eve and other sexually explicit magazines. In hopes of generating leads, investigators released images of 2 men seen near the crime scene on the day of Eve's murder. One suspect is described as a man in his late 30s or early 40s, of average height with a limp and a ruddy complexion. The other is around the same age but taller, with thick, wavy black hair. Unfortunately, no credible tips matching these descriptions were received. Eve had previously reported a man lurking near her house and following her. She described him as walking with a tense and awkward gait, but no one else could corroborate her claims. In a disturbing turn of events, Liverpool police discovered lipstick-smeared newspaper articles detailing Eve's brutal murder in October 1975. Landlord found magazine photos of the model upon cleaning after 2 male tenants moved out. These photos appeared to have been defaced with stab wounds made by a dart. In 1976, after exhausting all leads, authorities were forced to suspend the investigation. Over 3 decades later, in 2007, a breakthrough in DNA technology led to a shocking turn of events. The murder case was reopened after investigators discovered a link to another unsolved London murder from 1975. The second victim was 16-year-old schoolgirl Lynn Wheaton. Records show that just 6 months after Eve's death, on September 3, 1975, Lynn Wheaton returned home from celebrating her exam results with friends. Saying goodbye to her friends around 11 p.m., Lynn set off for home alone, taking a shortcut through a dark alley. Despite usually avoiding this path after dark due to prowlers, her haste that night proved fatal. At around 11:20 p.m., Lynn was suddenly struck in the head by a heavy object, causing her to lose consciousness. The serious attack left the victim with a fractured skull. Not stopping there, the perpetrator continued to lift the female student through the gate and into the yard of a transformer station. Next, he dragged the victim to a secluded place, out of sight. There, he raped Lynn and left her. The next morning, a custodian from a nearby school discovered Lynn collapsed on the grounds of the transformer station. Though seriously injured, the victim was still alive. Rushed to the emergency room, Lynn never regained consciousness and died a week later. The painful death of a 16-year-old female student sparked an immediate investigation. Around the time of the incident, a witness reported walking their dog and seeing a white man walking down the alley. Other witnesses described seeing a man matching that description running across the street into the alley and disappearing from sight. He is believed to be the attacker. However, the murder weapon remained undiscovered. This, coupled with the scarcity and ambiguity of the clues, led Lynn's murder case to stall and eventually go cold for many years. The deaths of Eve Stratford and Lynn Wheaton remained unconnected for 3 decades. However, in 2007, a DNA comparison between the 2 victims revealed they were killed by the same perpetrator. This breakthrough led to the reopening of Eve Stratford's case. Eve's father said his wife never recovered from their daughter's death. She visited Eve's grave daily, tormented by thoughts of her daughter's final moments. Unable to bear the sight of young, excited girls who reminded her of Eve, she was forced to close her shop. Ultimately, consumed by grief, Eve's mother died in 1986. Authorities collected DNA samples from 16 key suspects in last year's Eve murder case. However, none of these samples matched the DNA evidence left at the crime scene. Authorities believe both attacks were sexually motivated. The fact that the perpetrator brought a weapon to each crime scene and removed it afterwards strongly suggests these were planned acts with a sexual motive. Crime experts are also confident that the man witnesses saw entering the alley where Eve was murdered is her attacker. According to witnesses, the man had been watching Eve from the moment she began walking alone after saying goodbye to her friends, following her until she entered the alley. Investigators believe it's highly unlikely that these are the perpetrator's only murders. They suspect the perpetrator may have committed other crimes before and after these attacks. On March 25, 2015, police launched a new appeal on the 40th anniversary of Eve's murder, offering a reward of £40,000 for information leading to the arrest of the killer. Detectives suspect the killer may have committed other crimes before 1995. Since DNA collection from arrestees began that year, a match from an unsolved case is now possible. Authorities released a description of the suspect, a white male aged 17 to 30 at the time of the attack, between 63 and 77 years old in 2023. They believe he may be familiar with the alley where Lynn was attacked. Investigators believe individuals like psychiatrists, probation officers, prisoners, or prison guards may hold key information. The killer may have confessed or revealed details to them, potentially aiding in identification. "We cannot believe even Lynn's killer has kept this secret for 40 years, the lead detective stated. Such a burden would likely cause them to reveal details at some point, perhaps to a lover, friend, or even a fellow inmate. If you have any information, no matter how small, please come forward." However, up to now the police still have no answer to this shocking case. What do you think about this case? Leave your comments below in the comments section.